alien spacecraft did not crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947.
You know flat earthers, I guarantee it. But you don't know who they are because they're afraid of talking about it.
This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system.
Hello and welcome to the 14th annual Subliminal Deception Podcast, your weekly dose of conspiracy theory bullshit. My name is Cody and I'm joined by Phil, now in a new location because the CIA was after him and he had to relocate. Is that correct?
That is correct, Cody. I had to split.
If the CIA was after you, I still don't think you could just move away from them, right? I think they'd be pretty insistent on capturing you.
No, they would probably know that I was moving away before I was even thinking about moving away. And probably they would know where I'd want to move before I even looked it up. So
have you made sure all of your consumables have not been poisoned?
Well, I did throw out a lot of my old food, so
okay.
Any plans they had, pretty much those went out the window.
So how was the move? How was your new place?
It's good. It's a lot bigger than my last apartment. It's 700 square feet. So I've got an actual dining room area now and a porch or a patio, I guess you call it. So two sliding doors to it. So it's good.
Does it kind of look like shape-wise of your apartment that I when I was there I visited? No,
it's a lot more open.
Is it?
Okay. Yeah. So the kitchen and the dining room and living room are a lot more it's a lot more spacious.
So you enjoying your new man, I guess, crib? Because you're by yourself now, I guess.
Yeah, the whole thing's the cave, so.
Yeah. I was going to say, I forgot what they called that thing. But anything exciting happened to you this week?
No, not really. I just kind of got a little bit of the sticker shock when I found out how much it was going to be, so. It's
the rent?
The rent, yeah. It's $1,000, so.
Okay. Well, that's probably pretty close to average for Arizona, isn't it?
Yeah, for Mesa, Tempe area, it's pretty average. I mean, in Pittsburgh, I could probably rent out the mayor's house for $1,100, but you got to take what you can get, and it's decent for what I pay for it. So
that's a good question. We should look up the real estate report for Pittsburgh because I literally have no idea. I assume Pittsburgh's definitely smaller than Philadelphia, right?
Oh yeah, a lot smaller.
But Dan Marino grew up in Pittsburgh, or did he just go to college there?
I know for sure he went to college there. I'm not sure about growing up there. He might have grown up in Pennsylvania, for sure, but because I know that was his home state.
So I want to ask you, do you remember watching him play on TV?
Ooh, his latter years, I remember. I do. I remember, let's see. I remember Elway, Marino, the old guys. I don't remember. I remember Young playing.
Okay.
Like the last of that old crop of quarterbacks I remember playing.
I wasn't really paying attention to football in their prime necessarily, but I've heard some ramblings that, obviously, let's say Joe Montana or Tom Brady are probably the best overall quarterbacks, but Marino might have been the greatest passing quarterback. Do you know what I mean? He's the best. He had such a good arm. He was super accurate. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see that. Did you ever watch a 30 for 30 where all of them were drafted? The big quarterback draft?
No, I haven't. I need to watch it though.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Marino actually slid in the draft quite a bit. Elway was the obvious number one pick, but there was a big controversy with him wanting to go play baseball if I believe the Colts picked him up.
Yeah.
Which then they did pick him up, and he was like, well, go fuck yourself. But then he got traded to the
Broncos.
Broncos? Yeah, the Broncos.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I think overall Marino is definitely better than Elway.
Yeah, there's do you remember the quarterback Jim Kelly?
Yeah, I know. I remember.
Yeah, he actually went to 4 Super Bowls, which I didn't realize that he was the Bills quarterback for their 4 failed Super Bowl attempts. A lot of people make fun of him for that, but like getting to the Super Bowl 4 times, like
I still remember that because like right in the midst of obviously the Cowboys dynasty, and then you had the Bills who kept going and losing every year. That was like right around the starter jackets were getting really big. Do you remember those?
yeah, I remember that shit. I had a Cowboys starter jacket.
Yeah, everybody had a Cowboys one or Vikings for where we're located, but like Bills never. I've never seen anybody who had a Bills one, and they were probably like the number 2 team in the league through all of that.
I remember when we well, no, you weren't in first grade with me, but in first grade, the teachers told us that if the Bills won the Super Bowl, we would get like a pizza party and then the next day off or something like that.
Ooh.
It was like huge. So we were all rooting for the Bills. Little did we know they didn't have a fucking chance in hell of winning that Super Bowl.
It was probably that one where they lost like 52-10 or something too.
Yeah, the one where they just got fucking lambasted. Yeah, it was probably that one.
I can say this, like as a Vikings fan, we've been snake bitten quite a bit, but then you think of your team going to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row and losing every year. Yeah, you can't get much sadder than that.
Especially if you're from Buffalo and that's kind of all you have.
Yeah, I know.
I hear it's a great city, but
I think it's just like really cold, and obviously the Buffalo wings are like what's popular, and I think Niagara Falls is right by there, right?
Yeah, it's really close.
Yeah, so I'm sure it's a beautiful place. It's just not like a big city or whatever.
Yeah, especially being a small market. I mean, Buffalo is the only team they've got, but the Bills is the only team Buffalo's got, so.
That's a good point. Well, should we dive in here? I once again have no idea what we're talking about, so I'm going to be as surprised as the audience is, but I'll let Phil take over here.
All right. So, lately we've been talking kind of a lot about like underground societies and reptilians.
Yep.
And in general, like just ancient stories of people living underground. So this kind of got me thinking about a story that I've actually read a lot of times on the internet recently, and it might possibly involve underground humans or even hollow earth theory.
Hell yeah. So
yeah.
You're diving in this bitch then.
Yeah, I'm actually gearing up a little bit for a hollow earth theory podcast, but I'm working towards it. So await that in a couple of weeks. But
yeah.
Let me ask you, Cody, have you ever heard of the village of Woolpit in Suffolk County, England?
I certainly have not. I've heard of Suffolk County, obviously, but I've never heard of whatever that town is.
Yeah, so you've definitely been to Suffolk County, England. So basically, I wish that I had heard this story and where it was located back when I lived there, because I Google mapped it, and it's only about like less than 30 miles away from Woolpit, from where I was living in Hawkwold.
As I was thinking of that, what was the name of the town you lived in? For some reason, Brandon always came to my mind, but I didn't think that was it.
Yeah, Brandon is where you got off the train.
Okay.
And then you had to drive a few miles. It's called Hawkwold cum Wilton.
Okay. Well, I hope some of our European fans are listening to this. I wonder if they know where that is, because like you were living in the middle of fucking nowhere, so I'm assuming it. Now, is this further north then?
So Woolpit is actually in East Anglia. It's about 2.5 hours northeast of London, and basically the biggest cities around there. Let me get a little bit about Suffolk County. So it's in the east of England, and the entire area is really big, like a hotbed for Anglo-Saxon archaeology. Its largest cities are Ipswich, which is 133,000 people about. Bury St. Edmunds, 40,000. That's the one that has the really big cathedral that we went to.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so it's that close. We literally like drove there.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, Mildenhall, which is the village outside of RAF Mildenhall, 10,000 people. And then Woodbridge, which I don't know if you've ever heard the RAF Woodbridge Rendlesham Forest story.
Yeah, I've definitely am familiar with Rendlesham. It's the amazing story.
So Woolpit is actually just a few miles away from Woodbridge.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so it's really close.
Now hold on. I'm really wondering if Woodbridge has a single Woodbridge in the entire town. What do you think?
Well, it is on a river right next to the water. So, I mean, I'm guessing that they've gotten rid of the Woodbridge and probably put up a concrete steel one. But
that'd be amazing if like they refuse to tear down the Woodbridge just for heritage, and it's like the most dangerous bridge in England because it's so unstable.
I wouldn't doubt it. They love their tiny little roads over there. So it's probably wide enough for one horse to ride through, but they have like 4 lanes of traffic on it.
I still remember you were driving to London. We were going to hop a train or get on the London Underground, and we were trying to find a parking spot, and someone was just like riding a horse through town. I still remember that. I'm like, Jesus, we're like really close to the city.
Yeah, we were just on the outskirts. It was the last stop of, I forgot what the actual town is, like the last stop for that line, but yeah, horses, just crazy. Like you wouldn't think like on the outskirts of London you just see horses riding around, but
hey, more power to them, I guess. People should know how much you hate driving in around there too.
Well, they should know that I hate driving in general, but especially the closer you get to London, the worse it is. So
anyway, continue.
Yeah. So obviously, anyone who's listening to this podcast and has heard this legend before knows that Woolpit is actually home to a conspiracy or a legend about 2 green children who kind of came out of nowhere one day. So legend, what's that?
Oh, I was just going to say, interesting, because I've never heard of this. I'm really curious now.
Yeah, so legend says that some farmers were harvesting the fields near the village of Woolpit and heard screams from what sounded like children. The farmers investigated and found 2 small children, a boy and a girl, near the opening of one of the many wolf pits dotting the area. Now, the wolf pits that dot the area is actually where the town's name Woolpit comes from. So.
Okay, is that essentially just a cave system, or is that like a sinkhole, or what is that?
I didn't really get like a good idea of it. At first when I was reading this, I thought like maybe there were actual wolves who, but I don't think it's that. I think they're just kind of like these little caves.
Yeah, I just envisioned like obviously say where we grew up in Iowa, we get sinkholes, which are essentially leading to kind of cave systems or whatever. So I kind of just assume that might be what it is.
Yeah, this whole area is like right on the water. So I'm guessing that there's a lot of unstable ground in the area.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
So these children were kind of weird when the farmers came up on them. They were screaming in an unknown language, had a greenish hue to their skin, and they were wearing clothing made of an unfamiliar material that the simple farmers had never seen before.
Interesting. I was almost going to be like, do they have jaundice? But I think you turn yellow when you have that.
Yeah, that's all coming up in the theories, but it's, yeah. So there's a lot of theories on this one. So I'll leave that towards the end though.
Perfect.
So the farmers, according to legend, took the children to the home of Richard de Calne. I'm probably not saying his name right, but he was a local knight. And the villagers attempted to take care of the very small, odd-looking children. So
sorry. What year is this? Do you know?
Oh, this was sorry, I should have mentioned that before. This all took place in between it's during the reign of King Stephen. So it all took place in the early 1100s.
Damn.
There's not really like a nailed down date for like when these kids showed up, just because obviously, records weren't really kept that well back then. So.
Okay. Well, you said night, so I'm like, it has to be pretty old. So that's just why I just want to make sure. So technically the date, really doesn't matter because it's so fucking old. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, technically they still have knights, but they're not, it's.
So are you saying this was Sean Connery and Elton John who saved these 2 green children?
Yeah, Sean Connery and Richard Branson are out there fucking people up, taking in green kids. But no, so yeah, it's feudal England. So
Okay.
there's knights, kind of around. But he probably would have been like the rich guy in town
Okay.
or in the area.
Gotcha.
So basically, they took in these kids. The children, according to legend, were said to not eat anything or drink anything that was offered to them. This was until one of the villagers brought in some beanstalks. So when the children looked at the beanstalks, they immediately grabbed at them and started splitting open the actual, the beanstalks itself. And they said that they looked very disappointed when the beanstalks were empty. One of the caretakers actually grabbed one of the pods, and showed them that if they opened up the pods, the beans were inside, which then they immediately started eating the beans. So they actually supposedly thought that the beans would be inside the stalks. So they recognized the bean stalks, but they didn't realize that the pods would be full of the beans and not the stalks, which is kind of a weird little part of the story.
Okay. It's very strange. Maybe it's insinuating that where they come from, maybe the beans are located in the stalks.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking the story's getting to. The thing about the story is they wouldn't actually eat anything except for green beans after this point. So really, this was the only food that they ate.
Okay.
Just green beans.
I need to get this out of the way right now, but when you said two green children, I was like, is a jolly green giant an estranged father? And then you said they started eating green beans, and I'm just like, it's just falling into place perfectly.
Yeah. They could have actually taken advantage of the legend and,
Oh, that's a good point. Okay, I didn't even think about that.
No one really knows the patronage of these children, so maybe, maybe they got a super tall, deep-voiced green giant who maybe just wanted to get rid of him for a little bit.
I was going to say, I assumed he was just a deadbeat dad and just kind of left him there for somebody else to take care of.
Yeah, who knows? It could possibly, maybe your theory could pan out.
He left him there and headed for Pittsburgh.
Yep. Where he became Big Ben. A lot of people don't know that.
There you go.
So soon after being found, legend has it that the young boy became very ill and eventually died. The girl, however, became healthier and even lost the greenish hue to her skin, eventually even learning the local language of the villagers of Woolpit. She later would grow to adulthood and marry a local man. And I could not find what this man's name possibly was. So don't ask what the dude's name was, but
I don't know who would marry a weird plant girl who came out of the ground. Did it say why the brother died or the boy died? He just died?
He just got sick and died. That's all that the story says. So
okay. All right, interesting.
So when the girl learned the local language of the people of Woolpit, the caretakers obviously had a lot of questions for her. She told the caretakers that she and her brother came from a land with no sun. I imagine that the locals probably thought to the kids yeah, no shit, we don't either. So if you've ever been to that part of England, it's
I was going to say that's a deep jab at England right there, Phil.
Yeah, I know. It's a little I only saw the fucking sun for 11 days out of the 4 years I lived there. So
that's a good one.
The place that she claimed to be from was called St. Martin's Land. And the people who lived in St. Martin's Land lived in perpetual twilight. All of them had the same green colored skin, is what she told the villagers about her people.
Is that a piece on a Monopoly board?
What's that?
St. Martin's Place? Isn't that
a property?
Yeah, isn't it?
I don't know. Is it?
I don't. It might be St. Charles Place. I don't know.
It's probably St. Charles Place and a combination of two. I think that they're all properties in Atlantic City. But
okay.
I think that's how it's supposed to go.
Okay, so is she insinuating maybe she's green because they never see the sun?
I'm thinking that that's what the story's trying to get to is because eventually she does get the color out of her skin. The greenish color leaves her skin. So
okay.
According to the legend, obviously, but So how she, like what she told the villagers about how she came to be in Woolpit, she said that she and her brother had heard bells and became entranced and eventually found themselves in the opening of the pit. They saw the light at the end of the tunnel and just kind of wound up in the field.
Weird.
Yeah, so the girl, like I said before, had a long and full life after recovering, but was never able to give anything more, like really to help the people that were take care of her solve the mystery of where she and her brother came from and also who they might be.
I feel like they could have just went back to where she emerged from and went in there, right?
Yeah, you would think that they would possibly like have some kind of a search out there, like maybe there's a green mama and papa like out there looking for their kids, or you know.
Well, we know the Jolly Green Giant isn't looking for his kids. He's a capitalist now.
A little bit worried about child support. Yeah.
They don't want him taking his vegetable money.
You know how pain of an ass it is to cash those big checks. So where I got this was from a few different sites on the internet. Basically, there were like tons of books and articles written about this kind of topic. It's wound up in a lot of books. One of the famous books that they all get their information from is from Thomas Knightley's book published in 1850 called The Fairy Mythology. So this book takes its story from two extremely early sources from around the year 1200, which were written around 60 years after the time that the Green Children were said to have been found.
Okay.
So these two books are Historia Rerum Anglicarum by William of Newburgh, who lived from 1136 to 1198, and Chronicon Anglicanum by Ralph of Coggeshall Abbey, who lived around the time of 1277. He didn't have specific dates for his time. So.
Can you imagine seeing those book titles on like a New York bestsellers list?
Yeah, I'm not really sure if these are all like if this is all Latin or.
It sounds like a fucking spell book. When you were reading it, it sounds like a fucking Harry Potter spell book or something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that all of these old books were written in Latin. So I'm guessing that these, because it kind of sounds like Latin if you've taken a lot of science classes or a Latin class, obviously. Yeah. But
so the guy who wrote the book on the fairies is taking like his inspiration from those two books, correct? Yes.
So Knightley's account is mostly just a translation of Ralph of Coggeshall Abbey's story. And then some parts he takes from William of Newburgh's book.
Okay.
So it's mostly Ralph of Coggeshall Abbey's story.
No, I guess I didn't hear if you mentioned or not. Is this guy claiming it's a fiction or nonfiction book?
So apparently both of those early books are like supposedly, well, one of them is kind of a history of the county, and then another one written by Ralph is kind of a collection of weird stories, kind of like mythology type stories. Like one is of a merman.
Okay.
There's a bunch of different stories in this book. Kind of like a local history of crazy mythical shit that happened in there.
I was going to say, like, I've read a lot of like English legends about fairies or Irish legends about fairies. You know what that was kind of like they believe they were real.
Yeah, so a lot of the old mythology says that fairies were real. I mean, if you go to Iceland, you can actually take classes to be like a fairy, not a fairy hunter because they don't hunt them obviously, but like someone who like lives amongst fairies, and they're basically just tossing their money down the fucking drain. But
well, we learned from Ocarina of Time, you just need a bottle and they just instantly go in there, don't they?
Yeah, all you need to do is just open it and then the music starts and they just pop right in.
Yeah, you get fully rejuvenated.
God, that was a great game. Yeah, we wasted a lot of time playing that motherfucker.
It was good though. It's a legendary game.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go into a little bit. I got a little bit of a synopsis from both of the books from the websites, and I'm gonna go into Historia Rerum Anglicarum from William of Newburgh, his account first, because I kind of like this one a little bit better. Seems a little bit more like he's actually trying to tell a history, like a legitimate, he did some investigating.
All right.
So his account was written in 1196. He did not actually witness the green children, and he hadn't apparently seen any evidence of them, or evidence that they had existed at all. And the girl who survived, supposedly, was probably dead by the time he had written this book.
Okay.
I am going to mention that it is a little weird that you think like a village of like a very few people, and he goes to this village and does investigating and actually speaks to people who supposedly knew this woman. You would think that he would know, like, if she did get married, you would think that he would know, like, possibly her children or grandchildren.
Yeah, like, obviously back then, people didn't really migrate out of the towns that they were born in, so I'm pretty sure he'd be able to find the lineage.
Yeah, you probably died in the same barn that you were born in. So I mean,
That's so fucking depressing.
I know, it is.
God.
Yeah, but, so, I mean, getting away from that, the story was taken, like I said before, from all these, like, supposed witnesses that he had met. So his account is really the only one with alleged quotes from the children, and they named their home St. Martin's Land. So his account is the one who actually says they're from St. Martin's Land.
Okay, all right.
So in his book on the topic of how the children actually came to Woolpit, William quotes the children as saying, "We only remember this, that on a certain day when we were feeding our father's flock in the fields, we heard a great sound, such as we are now accustomed to hear at St. Edmund's, when the bells are chiming. And whilst listening to the sound in admiration, we became on a sudden, as it were, entranced, and found ourselves among you in the fields where you were reaping." So I'm guessing St. Edmund's is it's either the cathedral in Bury, or it maybe is a church that used to be in Bury, St. Edmund's. But I don't know how old that cathedral is, so.
So am I hearing this right? The girl is before they were found, she was helping her father with his flock or whatever?
Yeah, she and her brother were feeding their father's flocks in the fields in St. Martin's Land.
So what I'm trying to piece together here is, like, if we're to believe these people are real, then literally inside the earth, there's like another reality where people live like we do on the outside, right? That's kind of what it's leaning towards?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm going to get into all of that, later on. But, I mean, if you look into Hollow Earth, there's a lot of different obvious, like interpretations or stories about what might be inside the Hollow Earth. But some of them, like, it's a lot like our planet, but it's just a little different. There was one I read about Hollow Earth that said the trees grow up to like thousands of feet tall, and animals grow really big there because the sun is like really close to them, because their sun is in the center of our Earth. So,
I didn't even know there was a sun in there.
Yeah, so according to some Hollow Earth, I'm getting into Hollow Earth now, but according to some Hollow Earth theories, the sun is in the center of the universe, or in the center of the Earth. Their sun is, which is in the middle of our Earth.
So, not to detract too far from this, but have you ever heard the theory that why dinosaurs, say, or like any of the life back in that time period got so big is because the oxygen levels were a lot higher than they are now? You ever heard that?
I've heard different things. I've heard it was because of like the food that they've eaten. I've heard that they're just reptiles, and reptiles will get as big as like they need to be, kind of deal, like evolution. But
yeah, but
not really sure.
If you think about the oxygen thing, say like, okay, if the oxygen is richer, then plants grow bigger, and then I guess technically the animals will grow bigger, yada, yada, yada. So when you say the things about if they have huge animals and trees, what if in the Hollow Earth they had a higher concentrate of oxygen or something? Wouldn't that be trippy?
Yeah, I mean, that could be. The oxygen actually does get thicker as you get closer to the center of the Earth. Like oxygen, obviously for us is a lot thicker than it is up in the like stratosphere. So that does actually make sense. The only thing is, I don't think plants would grow bigger with more oxygen because they take in carbon dioxide. They don't live off of oxygen.
Yeah, I don't know.
But animals do, so.
It was just like a theory of why the dinosaurs got so large, but I don't know. Obviously, we don't know if it's true or not.
That is interesting. And supposedly dinosaurs, as we learned in 2 weeks ago episode, possibly live in the center of Earth. So we're bringing it back.
That was perfect, like Phil. That was perfect.
So William's account is a little bit, like I said, it's different than Ralph's account, Ralph of Coggeshall. I'm just calling him Ralph because I'm tired of saying all that shit. But William's account varies to Ralph's account. In William's account, it is also the only one that claims that the girl eventually married. But there are different translations. Like I said before, this is probably, I think, written in Latin. Knightley's book, who I mentioned, has the husband being from Lena. And there's another book written at this time that I kind of didn't want to go into. It's lesser known. That was also written in the mid 1800s. And that writer has the man that she married from a town called Lynn. I'm not sure if that's King's Lynn or if that's a different Lynn. But
well, being so old, I mean, the town could have changed its name. You know what I mean? Over time or whatever. But I was just thinking about this. Knowing the time period, what if they just said she got married just so she wouldn't go to hell or something or whatever their religious beliefs were? I'm
sure that something like that could have popped up.
Yeah.
I mean,
ooh, you can't be unwed, honey. You got to get married to someone, even if it's just a fake one.
Even if it's just a, what do they call that when they get married for the insurance? Like when two people just live together.
Yeah. I could
just for the health insurance.
Could you see her? She's like, she's human now. And she's telling her story about living in Earth or whatever. She's like, yeah, that's cool. But have you ever heard of Jesus Christ before?
Have you ever heard of the LDS Church?
Oh.
So actually what you said about Lynn possibly changing its name or not being there anymore, I was thinking about that town that I was living in, Hawkwold. Do you remember the bridge that we cross to get into the town?
Yeah.
So the town actually used to be along the river, but the Black Plague hit the town so hard that they burned down the town and they rebuilt it a few miles away.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah. The plague hit the town that hard that...
Damn, that's fucking nuts.
Yeah, wow. It was originally it was Hawkwold and then a different village of Wilton, but they combined them. And I don't know why CUM is the word for and, but whatever. However, languages. But so basically getting back to wherever the fuck I was. Yeah, so like I said, Ralph and William's books differ. The reason why I like William's, Ralph, actually his only witness to this was, I mentioned the DeCalne home before. His only witness is actually DeCalne himself. So that's kind of why, it could either be a super good witness or it could be like a full of shit witness.
Yeah, I know. And there's no way to actually know the truth.
Yeah. And the most important thing is William of Newburgh's book doesn't actually have the children being taken to the DeCalne home at all. That means that none of his witnesses told him that the DeCalne home was involved at all. But Ralph's only witness, DeCalne himself, said, yeah, they were taken to my house. Eventually, she became my servant, and we took care of her, and she met her husband. You know what I mean? Or no, Ralph never actually said that she got married. That's how one of the ways.
Okay, all right.
It's a little confusing. I'm trying to keep it all straight myself, but
basically what you're trying to do is determine whether the story actually has any credence or if you're finding irregularities within the book itself to prove if the entire story is just horseshit anyway.
Yeah, the other main reason I don't like Ralph's version of it is because his story was put inside of a book that he wrote that had other fantastic stories that were most definitely full of shit. So
yeah,
that's the reason. Help. That's kind of the reason I also don't like his story. So
yeah, it doesn't help his case at all.
Yeah, he didn't do very good. He didn't do his due diligence either, not even by 1200 AD standards. So basically, I'm done kind of talking about them. I'm going to go into a few of the different theories that kind of like where the children came from, who they were, that kind of stuff. So right off the bat, I'm going to jump into it. We mentioned it before, fairies.
Okay.
There is a theory that these children could be fairies, either like a kind of a fairies are usually thought to be like very, very small. So they could be like fairies that magically turned into normal looking humans or kind of like crossbreed type fairies.
Well,
but there is a theory that it's the greenish skin and the fact that they kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. So actually, I mean, from what I've researched with the fairies or whatever the mythological creatures around England and Scotland and all that, like I think there's like a shitload of different species, I'm air quoting here, species of fairies. So I think they can be small, like your traditional Tinkerbell one or whatever, or they can be like human size almost because they're almost more of like a devil than like what we think of a fairy, you know what I mean? Like a trickster.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like
they're all
do you remember the Changeling?
From Star Trek?
I didn't even know they had that in there, but no, the Changeling is like a mischievous fairy that basically takes over somebody's body or whatever, like switches, steals babies and stuff.
That's like Loki in Nordic religion, isn't it? Mythology. Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. The whole thing about you talking about them being green and stuff, like, if we were to believe fairies are even real, that's kind of like pushing it in that direction. You know, that they could be fairies.
Yeah, that's a big if. If fairies do exist, then they possibly could be fairies. I also, from what I hear about fairies, I know that they have a very like strict diet. Like they only eat like certain things nothing else. So the green beans thing could actually, that kind of makes sense a little bit. If they were fairies, they only eat certain things.
I mean, where else better to hide than in the center of the earth, too? Or wherever, inside of the earth or whatnot.
Or a possible alternate dimension with only fairies populating it, or,
Yeah.
That's also, yeah. So that's actually my next one is that they came from an alternate dimension or an alternate timeline or some kind of outside of our own basic, the Woolpit kind of acted as a doorway to this other dimension. And the people there just happen to be green. The village that they came from is called, or the county or the state that they came from is called St. Martin's Land. And maybe they look like that because in their dimension, the sun's a little bit different. Like it's a different type or it's made out of different material, not hydrogen and helium.
Isn't that one of the leading theories with the hollow earth, that inside of the earth is like an interdimensional portal, or there's portals inside of the earth? I feel like I've heard that before on like, because some people claim aliens go in there or whatever to travel.
Yes, that's also a hollow earth theory too. And also it's kind of said that like there's different speculations, but like that sun that's supposedly in the center of the earth is much different, obviously, than like our sun, Sol. So
I don't think our sun would fit inside of the earth, would it?
No, it wouldn't, obviously. So, yeah, I don't think many stars in the galaxy would fit in the center of our Earth. Yeah.
So if the kids were from another dimension inside of the Earth or wherever, then would they be like English people but just green and prefer to eat stalks of green beans? Yeah,
I mean, if they were from an alternate dimension or something like that, they wouldn't necessarily be English. It is in the story. It said that they spoke a different language and eventually learned the language. So possibly they were from the same, like on the planet that they lived, which is also Earth, they lived on the land that's England, but possibly it was called St. Martin's Land.
So
in this, I didn't mention this, but in some of the research that I did, they said that they were actually Christian in St. Martin's Land.
of course they were.
Obviously, yeah.
You couldn't be anything else.
They would have fucking killed them if they weren't. So,
so I was thinking, okay, let's say they're from a parallel universe or something, right? They're green. So technically, right now, there could be two green people recording Subliminal Deception podcasts in their dimension, right?
Dude, this is way off the topic, but I just watched Us last night.
Don't spoil it. I still need to watch it.
All right, never mind. I won't fucking spoil it. Rent it. It's fucking great.
I've heard it is. I was thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna start. Like, I didn't watch the last one that he directed, but I'm gonna watch it now just because that was so good.
You've never watched Get Out?
Get Out, that's the one.
Oh,
no, I haven't watched it.
Fuck, it's good, man. Anybody out there watch it. It's super good. I wouldn't even say it's a horror movie. It's more like a thriller.
That's how this one was.
Was it more thrillerish? I kind of know the premise, but I definitely don't want to be spoiled. I'm sure nobody else wants to be spoiled either.
No, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I just want to say, like, it kind of like, it really, I was watching Us as I was writing this, and I was like, holy shit, like, this theory down, but whatever. So the next one I'm going to go into is, you kind of mentioned it before, so I'm going to only a little bit. Underground civilization. Obviously, portals, the Woolpit acted as a portal to this underground civilization or possible Hollow Earth type situation. It matches up with the fact that the sun isn't very strong because obviously that tiny little sun in the center of the earth wouldn't put out much light. But apparently they have flora and fauna down there. So,
well, yeah, if they have humongous trees and stuff, I mean, obviously there's plant life and whatever. When you first started telling the story, I'm like, okay, obviously you're relating this to Hollow Earth, but it's like if there's a series of caves or canals deep enough down there that just ended up leading to a city, that'd be trippy as fuck.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, a lot of the Hollow Earth has like openings acting as portals that take you to the Hollow Earth, and some people have it as like you have to go down an actual tunnel. So I'm not really sure if you would say that these kids went through a portal or came up through a tunnel. There's a really old, like 1700s scientist who theorized that the Earth's crust was 800 miles thick, and underneath the Earth's crust is the Hollow Earth. And they kind of like live, like they walk on like the ceiling almost.
Yeah.
Kind of how they do it.
Yeah. Okay. Huh.
That's kind of the illustration he made, but it's pretty interesting if you get into it. We're going to talk about it obviously in like, however many weeks, but.
So, I kind of am curious now if like it would even physically be possible to have a Hollow Earth. I don't know.
I mean, really.
Like, could it be stable enough to be like that?
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, like how they make arches is, nothing's really holding up the arch. But like the circular form kind of holds it all together. So if the Earth was hollow but had that circular form, it would all hold itself together.
That's a good point, actually. Huh.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue.
It'd have to be super thick, but
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, right.
So the last thing I'm gonna go. Oh no, I actually have a few more. I had some on the next page. So this is taking a little bit longer than I thought. So the next thing I'm gonna talk about, obviously, very close to Rendlesham Forest. Very close to RAF Woodbridge, aliens.
That's
these kids. Yeah,
you know what's the weird thing? Like, obviously, for some reason, I feel like a while ago, like the green-gray thing was a big thing, and then it's like all of a sudden, now they're just grays and white or whatever. So it's an interest. It would be like the aliens from the movie Signs, right?
Yeah, if you go like on the internet and look up the different races of supposed aliens, there are little green men styled ones. They're styled after like the 1950s like sci-fi movies. But
okay, so there's supposedly a real alien race that is green.
Yeah, supposedly.
Okay. Interesting.
But so these aliens could have dropped these kids off and then kind of planted them on Earth possibly hybrids, setting up kind of like a line or spying on humans, doing, anything you can think of. It's kind of where I was going with this theory. But
I mean, I could see that. Parents we've all seen Joe Dirt. He just gets accidentally misplaced at the Grand Canyon, right? I mean, maybe aliens were visiting Woolpit or whatever and just accidentally left the kids there.
Possibly the Jolly Green Giant people just stopped the saucer for a smoke and forgot the kids.
He was blasted and he just forgot about it. I'm still leaning on the Jolly Green Giant. I think he's involved in this somehow.
Yeah. So I was kind of thinking of like an angle. If you think about it, that one, like the chick who survived, if she actually did have a husband and kids, she could have like a whole line right now. Former prime ministers, former like king or queen, very important people in England, could have moved to America, could even have become president, possibly just an opportune place to set some infiltrators down. You
think for a strange girl found in the middle of nowhere, she's ascended power that quickly?
Yeah. No, not her. Her descendants.
Well, I'm saying, I mean, she would probably have to have a hand in it, right?
Well, I mean, maybe she's a sleeper.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe. What are you up to, Queen?
Shitting out a bunch of Manchurian candidates. So my next two, I'm going to go through these really quick because they're just kind of, the next one's kind of funny. It's Irish spies.
Okay. Yep. And
because I mean, they got the green skin. They didn't say anything about their hair, but I imagine the hair is red. So
could they be St. Patrick's Day time travelers?
They could be. I mean, that green skin did go away pretty quick.
Like they had a weird hot tub time machine with experience with like Jameson and Guinness or something, and they got transported back in time.
That would explain why they didn't want to eat any of their crappy food. They just want the junk food. But if they were Irish spies, come to think of it, they would only want to eat potatoes.
Right.
There's a hole in that theory.
Maybe they were so blasted they thought that a potato was inside a beanstalk.
That also could have happened. With the Irish, anything's possible.
Anyway, continue.
I'm going to just jump straight to the last theory. These were just some sick kids who got lost from a couple villages over. You mentioned jaundice before. There are diseases where your skin turns different colors, either from like a deficiency or in their diet or maybe something that they're missing out on. And then when they were actually taken care of, their skin turned back to normal. Like you said before, people didn't really get out much back then. So if they spoke English but had a different dialect, it could possibly, that could be it. And then once they learned the dialect and how to speak it, it was that easy. Just, they didn't have to learn the language. They already knew English. Or whatever the Anglo-Saxons, people spoke.
Did you look up what diseases make your skin turn green, or like what deficiencies or whatever?
I know it was like a deficiency in like not eating enough like vitamins, like certain kind of vitamins that we get a lot of in our food.
Yeah,
but I didn't actually take a look at what these actual diseases were. Let me see.
Okay.
So actually, I just looked it up. It's called hypochromic anemia. Hypochromic anemia is a generic term for any type of anemia in which red blood cells are, well, it's basically like just your skin turns green. So I don't want to get into the whole thing because it'll take me like 10 minutes to describe it. But hypochromic anemia.
Well, I think regular anemia is when your red blood cells aren't getting enough iron, so I assume it's just something along those lines. So yeah, I guess that could make sense. The two kids were just super sick. Maybe it's an illness that causes amnesia, maybe, or something. They don't really know.
It could also be a disease that caused that kid to die, too. So They said that kid got sick and died. If he died from that anemia,
That's a good point, actually.
So kind of the theory is that these kids actually were from a village not too far away called Fordham. The research that I did said it was 6 miles away, but I know for a fact it's a lot further away than that because it's the the highway that you take after the five ways at the McDonald's, it's right to the, like a few miles down from there. So it can't be only 6 miles. But it would explain, like, if these kids basically got lost down in a mine shaft and just kind of popped out in, you know, some random field, it would explain why they spoke a different dialect. It explains maybe why they were sickly, why they were so scared. They also said that they basically got kind of popped out of that wolf pit when they saw the light. So if you were down in like a tunnel for a really long time and you saw any light, you would just run towards it. So
yeah, that's a good point, actually. I'm sure they'd be fucking terrified and want to get out of there.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure, like, I don't know how long it takes for like whatever disease they had to like take effect, but if you like, they would have had it. It wasn't 6 miles away, but it's more like I think 13 miles away is what Google Maps told me, and that's with the roads that we have now. So obviously those roads weren't there 900 whatever years ago, but
I'm sure the McDonald's wasn't there either.
No, I'm sure it's not. But I actually had a couple friends who lived in Fordham out there. But so that's kind of the most, if this story actually did happen, which is a super big if, that's kind of like the most obvious theory that it could be.
So basically, your entire thing here is kind of a roundabout way of telling one story about said hollow earth that these kids could have came out of, essentially, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is one of the Hollow Earth stories. Possible Hollow Earth stories.
I was going to say, I'm sure there's a lot of them. I'm kind of surprised you didn't include in your theories that they could be reptilian kids. Yeah,
they could be reptilian hybrid. I mean,
that's a
little bit of a mix of the aliens and the Hollow Earth.
That's right. But, that's a good point. Because, I mean, the reptilians are supposedly living in the Hollow Earth or like underground, right?
Yeah, living in disgusting tunnels under the earth that supposedly stink like horrible.
The kids are green. I mean, obviously David Icke would claim they're reptilian kids, but that's his opinion. So,
and it also would go with the Manchurian candidate future too, but you know.
Good point. We're solving this bitch. All right, Phil. So,
I was going to ask, what do you think about this?
Perfect. I was going to say, I don't think they came from a hollow earth. I think I can say that pretty confidently, but it's a very intriguing story because the story's, 900 years old. There's a lot of the game of telephone that gets mixed up when you're trying to recall a story from that old or trying to get data from that old or whatever. I could very well see the kids were sick. They got lost, and they just got taken in. I could definitely see that if we're trying to keep this in the logical realm. But I think the story could be real, but I don't think they're like some plant kids that came from the center of the earth. Obviously, how about yourself? What do you think?
Ooh, well, I mean, obviously, sick kids from a few villages over is number one. I would give that much more than the Neil deGrasse Tyson 50-50.
50-50,
but
yeah.
I'm going to say 99% sick kids. And then I like actually what you mentioned, the underground reptilians. I kind of like that. So I'm going to give that 1%.
You gave that to David Icke 99%.
Yeah.
But
fairies is kind of an interesting thing too, just because like so many, I had no idea how many people believe that fairies are real. Like it is a substantial number of people in like Europe. And I should say not all of Europe. They're like weird parts of Europe, but yeah.
I was going to say there is actually 2 videos in pertaining to this that I seen on that Paranormal Caught on Camera show. One was a supposed video cover or video capture of a fairy. Like you can barely see it. It looks like a bug. And then it just like attacks the family that's like watching it or whatever, and which was in England. And number 2 was this guy was just navigating in a cave by himself because he was like a YouTuber or whatever. and he was going in. He's like super far in this fucker. And there's just a little girl sitting in there by herself because she had gotten lost and just kept venturing in there, and her parents were looking for her, right? But she didn't know how to get out, so she just kept going deeper and deeper, and then kind of just got scared and stayed in there. So people get lost in caves, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is true.
So I want to know, like, the story overall. Do you think the story is true? We're not saying what they are, whatever. I'm just saying, do you think the story itself could be true? Like, they actually found 2 green kids randomly?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It is possible that they just kind of found these kids and maybe they just kind of looked a little different and then their differences got exaggerated. I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, like they could be super dirty or something and maybe looked green and...
Or obviously this is a very like wet area. They could have just some green slime or something. You know what I mean? Like maybe they got stained by like the grasses out there or something happened to them where they had like green stains on their skin was stained green. And then everyone's like, "Oh, their skin was green."
Yeah. Well, I think there's moors and marshes and all that shit around here. So
yeah, there is actually the area. We actually went there. They have that huge cathedral. Ely is actually the whole thing is a marsh that's pumped out. So that is a really big marshland up there. You're right.
Well, I just know that because of reading all the legends of fairies and shit. Like, that's apparently where they live, like in North England or whatever. But anyway, Phil, so now if our fans would like to contact us about their feelings on the Jolly Green Giant's missing children, where can they do that?
And the fact that he's a fucking asshole of a father on Father's Day, nonetheless. So they can get a hold of us on Subliminal Deception Podcast on Instagram. Probably a lot of the listeners are already on there, but it's actually the best way to kind of like get a hold of us real quick. Cody also has a podcast Instagram account.
Yeah.
What is that one? You can get a hold of him at.
Yeah, you can follow me on Bumblebutt Podcast. That's my other podcast. Definitely check that one out. If you like true crime and paranormal and all that fun stuff. I
was also going to say you can get a hold of us at subliminaldpodcast@gmail.com.
Oh, right. We always forget about the email.
Yeah, we do.
I should thank the gentleman from Freak Show as well, because we must have talked about I needed to try to find something to watch, and he recommended Slasher on Netflix. I've watched like the first episode. Have you watched the show before?
No, I haven't. It's on Netflix?
Yeah. It's like a horror series or whatever, so I think he recommended because it'd be right up my alley because I fucking love horror movies. But anyway, the last thing we need to get out of the way is the iTunes reviews. If you could help the show out and just log in your Apple Podcasts, hit the 5-star button, leave a stupid little comment. Doesn't matter what you say. It'll help the show grow. And I think that will do it for this week, Phil. I am ready to get out of here. Are you?
Yep. It's hot as fucking hell. Gotta turn the AC back on.
Yeah, we don't want you turning green now. Well, anyway, guys, we will see you next week.
All right. Bye, guys.